Well, that's what first got you into education, as I understand it. You created a foundation, you started to make a lot of donations, and then you realized there's no amount of donations that's going to solve this problem. Like we need massive overhaul. It's government that's the problem. And I heard you speaking to Moms for Liberty, a group I also love and have spoken to, saying we need to abolish the Department of Education. Like, what happens? I mean, I didn't realize it's only been around since Carter. Until I read your book, I'm like, has it been that recent that the Department of Education was created? So what happens if we get rid of the Department of Education?
Well, we could still spend the same amount of money and attach it to families so they could make those decisions for their children. What most people don't know is the federal Department of Education, the federal budget, only supplies or provides 8 or 9% of all of the funding for education, for K-12 education in our country. We spend about $750 billion every year for K-12 education, and yet only 8 or 9% of that comes from the federal government. But all of the strings come from the federal government. So the monies that go into the department for redistribution are churned around there. The philosophical bent of those career, bureaucrats that work there year in, year out, administration to administration, are put on top of, we did everything we could in our time there to redirect and reorient everything that we did around doing the right thing for students. That is not how the department generally operates. It really does operate with a very ideological bent, and that is exacerbated in an administration like the Biden administration, where they tried to, essentially kill any charter school expansion with rules that would make it impossible to open new charter schools. They're trying to do it now with the Title IX rule that we put into place, which made dealing with matters of sexual misconduct on campuses one that we put a framework together that was fair and balanced, predictable, and put the accuser in charge of how that would unfold, not putting them at as was the case before. They sometimes became almost victim to the process, and due process was thrown out the window before we put the rule in place. They're trying to undo all of that. And I know you want to get into that more. So I'll just stop and just say this administration doubles down on the ideology. And so doing away with and putting the monies back into the hands of state and local government, if that's the route, or better yet, into the hands of families for their children, for children with disabilities, having the monies that support that through IDEA going to the families to make those decisions would be a much better use and much more effective use of taxpayer dollars.
The teachers' unions and a lot of Democrats don't like putting the money behind the student because they don't want them to have the choice, because I've heard you point out they don't think they'll win the competition. They don't think they'll be the one chosen. And so that doesn't help them in their power. The charter school thing is interesting. Joe Biden came in and really, unlike Obama, like Republicans wanted vouchers. And they liked charter schools too. And then Obama came in. He didn't like vouchers. He didn't like the money following the student. But he said, okay, charters could be all right. Not to the extent a Republican would, but he was more open-minded to it. And Joe Biden has come in and said, no, charters are bad. And he's pushing through this massive agenda item that would say, you can have a charter if the local public school approves it and says it's good. I mean, I'm really short forming here, but it was so aggressive that even some top Democrats just came out. This is happening right now, and said, this is too much. You've gone too far, because his proposed revision of how charter schools could get permission to operate and could exist is going to hurt Black and brown people more than anybody. It's like the big charter school systems, they'll be fine. They'll be able to find a way to comply. But it's like the mom and pop operations who are in the inner city, who see a need, who have a bad public school, who say, I can do better. I'm going to try and help these kids. They can't. And so they're the ones who are going to get hurt. And so, like so many of his policies, he's going to defund the police as another one. It's going to come back and bite the very people he claims to care most about.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. But we have to remember he is married to a member of the NEA, and he has pledged his support to the NEA and the teachers union, school union agendas. And so this is not a surprise, but people should wake up and acknowledge that this is what's happening. There is an attack all across the board on any option and any alternative that isn't the government run, top down, federally focused and, state executed system that so many kids are stuck in today and were let down by in the last 2 years. So this is not a surprise, but parents support their ability to have the choices and the options. They need to wake up and support those for elective office, both at the federal and the state level, who support their ability to do that as well. They need to understand that the Democrat Party is totally bought and paid for by the school unions and all of their allies. It's happened in a vicious cycle for many, many years, and it's become ever more evident just recently.
I think people are waking up at least to the ideology in the school. I'm not sure everybody's got the charter system figured out and all of that, but for sure we saw during COVID the anger over these senseless mask mandates on children and the vaccine mandates, which they're now basically admitting were senseless because they're saying treat the vaccinated and those who have had COVID the same. And virtually everybody's had COVID now. So it's like, why were people fired? Why were kids expelled from schools for not getting them and so on? We're never getting apologies for that. And so I do think they're paying attention. So one of the things that's gotten the attention is this so-called critical race theory in schools. And that's basically just a term that covers this, race essentialism in schools, making everything about skin color. You've got inherent characteristics because you're black, or you've got them because you're white, or because you're Hispanic, and so on. And we see it every day. And just yesterday, it was in the news. I'm sure you saw this, but there was a story out of Minneapolis public schools where the union there negotiated a deal. Apparently it was reached in March, but it's only making the headlines now, saying that you're going to fire the white people first. You got to fire anybody? The white teachers go first. We don't care about merit. We don't care about seniority. All we care about is skin color because we don't have enough black teachers here. They say that they want the teaching staff to better mirror the demographics of the pupils. More than 60% of these students are of color. Only 16% of the tenured teachers and 27% of its probationary teachers are people of color. And so, as it always is with some on the far left, we get to this sort of quota system where just the raw numbers must go up. No matter how bad some of these teachers may or may not be, or great some of these teachers may, that doesn't matter.
Right. Well, what they're proposing to do is simply wrong, and it's illegal. And I'm sure that will be pursued, but it's also wrong for the kids that are supposed to be served. Kids need to have great teachers. And the only way they're going to have great teachers is when merit is recognized and acknowledged. And ultimately, the only way that you're going to have ensure great teachers is when you have an open marketplace for education. The fact that we have had a government-run a monopoly that has today yet, there are more and more students leaving the system. But pre-pandemic, it was roughly 90% of the kids are in government-assigned schools or government-run schools. That dynamic, that number, that percentage needs to change, and more families need to be able to make a decision to leave those schools if they're not working for their children. Policies that support that are ultimately going to get at that and ultimately going to ensure that kids have great teachers no matter where they go to school, because the families are going to be choosing them and they're going to choose what's best for their kids because they care about and love their kids the best.
So as everyone starts to go back to school over the next few weeks, do good by helping feed children who are facing hunger and food insecurity. Our partner, Good Ranchers, is on a mission to donate 100,000 high-quality meals to young children who often go unfed or who are malnourished from poor access to nutritious food. You can join this campaign by ordering a box of 100% American meat. Every order contributes meals to the cause and makes a huge difference in the lives of these children. Good Ranchers is an award-winning food delivery service that brings 100% American meat and seafood to your door. They source the best of American farms so that you can get the highest quality food possible and trust what you are feeding your family every time. Go to goodranchers.com/Megyn to join the movement today. You will get $30 off your order, free shipping, and donate food to children in need. Giving back never felt or tasted so good. Let's help them hit and pass their goal of 100,000 meals donated. Go to goodranchers.com/Megyn. That's MEGYN. You can just use the code at checkout if you prefer. Change the future one meal at a time with Good Ranchers. goodranchers.com/Megyn. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.